Here we are, we've got the motor down, still lots of sawdust everywhere. In order to get the wiring all the way out and to really handle the fan and everything without cutting the wiring, you'd have to undo all the little screw bolts that hold on the penthouse control. Probably take the knobs off, that stuff should come out of there. I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to do all that just yet. Because the question is this thing ever going to actually run? Now let's take a look at this. This is the good times, guys. Good stuff. So we've got our motor windings and our rotor and our motor housing, and everything is covered in this sawdust. It's hilarious. So I'm going to pull the rest. This is held in with the wiring, as you can see, so I can't go far with that. And I don't want to push any of this sawdust into the bearing, make it any worse. So I got to find a way to dust that out. Again, if I had a air compressor, I'd be in better shape, but I don't. So I'm making do with what I got. So let's see if we can, yikes, somehow clean this out a little bit. All right, hit what you would call an unexpected snag here because I can't get the rotor to come out. It's stuck. There's supposed to be a high spot on this side of the shaft. So I'm going to hit it with, all I have is these little files at the moment. So I'm going to try and file down the end so that we can just get the rotor to come out. That's all I'm trying to do. I had to take the burr off the end here with a little file, but it worked. So that came out. It is undusted and sawdusted. You could see the two bearing surfaces here and here where it runs in the bearing, and then outside here that's where it's exposed, and then that's where the blade was. We did get some washers off the other sides of the motor, as you can see. And as you can see, the front side of the motor looks just as bad as the back. So we're gonna have to figure out how to get that clean without pushing more sawdust into the whole scene here. We'll see what happens. Don't know if you'll be able to see any difference here, but it looks a little better on the shaft side, where the bearing areas are, whatever. Again, here is where it runs in the bearing, and then this is the exposed part, but even that part came clean a little better. And so there's your rotor. Interesting that in the casting of this, I don't know how they do it, they must cast lead around these laminates, and not exactly a perfect job on that, but whatever. So there is the rotor. Okay, so the inside of the two motor housings, dusted out okay. I will need to clean the bearing surfaces properly, and then I'm just gently dusting the stator, and don't want to disturb anything, but I do want to get some of the dust off. Okay, now we're going to a lot of dirt's coming out of there. So this side you haven't seen, and again, just kind of moving away the dust gently as much as we can. The point of this is just to see if the motor will turn freely, and then if it does, plug it in and see if it works. Then to go forward, if you were to really start to turn this into a runner, you would blow this out with an air compressor, and then you'd have to decide if you feel like you got enough of the dust out of there to run it safely. I'm not really sure, because once it heats up, these motors run at 130 degrees or so. I don't think wood dust burns at that temperature, but God only knows, right? And so in the interest of safety, this might just be a throwaway motor anyway, and you get yourself a parts fan to build up your yellow Lakewood deal. That's common in the hobby, in all kinds of hobbies like that, where you have parts motors or parts fans or a parts car. But for now, it looks like we've got enough awful crap out of it that it might be okay to go ahead and clean the bearings, oil it, put it back together, and see if something happens. So that's what we're going to try to do today. Sorry for the lawnmower in the background, but I want to get this done. I decided to run some steel wool through the front bearing. I might have scored the front bearing kind of badly trying to pull the rotor through, live and learn. But I ran this through. I took some steel wool, cut a piece off, stretched out, and ran it across a pencil. And then I'll show you what I did with it. So then I just ran it across in with the pencil as the guide for that, and then I just gave it a spin, which is hard to do with one hand. I did it with two. So that kind of cleaned out the bearing a little bit, you know, whatever. We're doing what little bit we can, and we just want to get it back together and see if it'll run. So that's where we are. Again, we got a good amount of the dust off of the windings, at least to feel cool running it, and hopefully it'll be smooth and actually move. We'll see what happens. Alright, made some progress. I didn't oil the felts on the either side because they've covered in dust that really needs to be blown out with the compressor. For now, we're just trying to see if it'll go back together and spin. Alright, so the motor has gone back together. I did not oil the felts that are around the front and the back of the housing just because there's so much still sawdust in there. I think it needs to really be blown out with a compressor. But I did oil the bearings and ran them through a little steel wool, and it seems to spin nice and free, considering. So that's good enough for now. We're going to mount the motor back into the housing, plug it in, and see what it does.